Hi everybody, Lisa here, and today on my workbench I have an HP Pavilion G7 laptop. This guy was dropped off yesterday. The customer states that they noticed that the fan is constantly running at a high speed, and then they also noticed that the bottom of the laptop gets extremely warm. So they dropped it off yesterday and asked me if I would take a look at it. So I already removed it from its casing. I didn't want to bore you with that part of the video. But if you can see on my camera here, this is what the motherboard is for the HP Pavilion. Now, your fan will spin at all times. Once you power on that unit, your fan is going to spin. But it should not be at full throttle. Yes, your fan speed will fluctuate. It will increase and decrease depending on what application is being performed at that particular time. But when it's at a high speed at all times, could lead you to a couple things. One, the fan itself is starting to fail, or the second thing would be that it's actually clogged. And what's happening is, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, that the purpose of the fan in a laptop or a computer is to draw heat away from the motherboard, from these electronic components, because they are very sensitive. They're very sensitive to heat. They're heat sensitive, and its job is to dispose of that air. And when you have these vents clogged, the fan is saying, man, I got to do what I'm supposed to do here. I got to keep spinning to keep this guy as cool as possible, because in the software, and this also goes with iPhones and smartphones, even though there's no fans in them, but it is built in the software itself. Once a board hits a certain temperature, it flags a chip in there and saying, you know what, once we hit this threshold, shut down. And why it's shutting down is because it's protecting the internal components, because these guys are very sensitive to heat. Now, on a laptop and PC, when you're dealing with this fan, several things can start happening down the line if this doesn't get rectified as soon as possible. You will notice the performance of the laptop or laptop and PC. You'll notice a slower performance. You will notice more frequent shutdowns, and the last would be motherboard failure. And at that point, then you are looking at a full replacement, because then you're talking like multiple things could be going on with the board. So I do tell people laptops and PCs should be maintained. You got to keep up with the maintenance on them if you want them to have a longer life expectancy, I want to say. It is important that you do keep a regular maintenance on this stuff, just so the fact that you do get many years on them. Now, I'm not the type to go out and buy something new when it comes out of the market. I will drive my equipment into the ground. I will update as much as possible. Then, once I know I exceeded, I'm maxed out on updating, and that I have no choice to go out and buy it, then I definitely will. But in the meantime, I will maintain what I have until I find it necessary to go out and buy another piece of equipment. Same with phones. I will run it to the ground until I decide, hey, it is time. So I haven't looked at anything here. Like I said, I just removed it from the casing, so I don't know what I'm going to do here. I don't know what to expect, actually. Also, I want to make a note. As you see, I got my front camera here. Here is right here. This is the CPU motherboard, CPU motherboard heatsink, and what normally what sits under here is the GPU and CPU of it's the brains of the motherboard. And normally these chips are equipped with either or. It's a non-conductor material, and its purpose is to keep it cool. You'll either find a thermal pad or thermal paste. Now, because I will be removing this, because this is one whole unit here, I will be disturbing what was applied in at the factory. So once I remove this, I will clean up the old paste, and I will apply a fresh layer of thermal paste. And again, its job is to keep these chips cool, as well as the fan to expel this heat away from the motherboard. So let's see what we have here and see what we got. So, all right, what I'm going to do is just loosen up these screws here. These are, you see on my camera here? Yeah. Spring-loaded screws, so let me just loosen these up. Okay, and let me just disconnect the battery. Alright. And as you can see right here, this is that thermal paste that I was talking about. So if it was a pad, I replace it. If it was a pad on here, I would replace it with a thermal pad, but because it's a paste, I will reapply a thermal paste on here. So let me just set this to the side. Overall, the board does not look bad at all. Looks fairly clean. A little dusty, but nothing unusual. I've seen worse. Let me set that to the side. Now here is the fan. Okay, so got this. Now what I'm going to do is just remove it from the, make sure I'm lining the camera here. What I'm going to do is remove it from the heat sink here, and there's going to be vents. So my main thing is to see if there's anything in here. So let me undo the clips here. That clip, undo that clip. And ew, can you guys see that? Oh, that is so totally gross. Look at that. Gee, I wonder why their fan was running. That is just nasty. And this is just months or even years of accumulation, and I could totally see why the fan is running at a constant speed. Because if you see behind here, let me move this out of the way, this is just nasty. You can see these air vents, and that's what these need to be open so that air is drawn away from the board. And with this, ew, this is just gross. With this stuff just sitting here, packed against here, the heat has nowhere to go, and all it's doing is just accumulating in the board, and it's just sitting there wreaking havoc on the board. So all I need to do is just, you know, clean this out. Oh, this is just gross. Ugh, that's just nasty. Throw that away. I'm just gonna blow some a can of air in here, clean up with some alcohol, and then also I'm gonna clean off some of this old thermal paste. And then the fan looks pretty good. The blades look fairly decent. Sometimes I do see some buildup of little dust bunnies, but this one does not look bad. Everything just was just mushed up against the vent here. So this does not look bad at all. Just clean this all up and reassemble everything, and they should be good to go. So let me just blow some air out of here. See, you want to make sure all these tiny grooves are empty. So this is where all that air is just sucked out. So you want to make sure there's nothing in there. And let me get my cotton swab here. And just so I can just kind of keep it on camera here so you can see what I'm doing here. It's hard to work backwards. So I'm just going to clean these up, clean up the little vents here and everything. And yeah, so I do see a lot of stuff come in that just needs cleaning, and you know, I myself have been guilty. You know, there's times I open my laptop, I'm like, good Lord, I let this go, and I'm sitting here telling people it's important to keep things. So, you know, I'm guilty at the same time, but I've been better than I have in the past. Like I said, it's just regular maintenance. You can even do it yourself. If you're a DIY, you can open it up and just, you know, make sure it's unplugged, power's off and unplugged, and, you know, like I said, you'll get longer life out of these guys. Alright, remove the old thermal paste from the heat sink itself. So, that. Alright, so that's ready to go. Now Now you gotta be very careful when you're working with the chips here. So you cannot scratch them at all, or you will not get your laptop to turn on. So I'm just going to gently remove this. I'm just using a cotton swab here. Just remove this stuff, because you don't want to scrape it off with any picks or any tweezers. You just want to slowly clean it off here. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, because the alcohol is just starting to dilute it in. And also you got to be careful on the board here. There's these tiny components, so when you're scraping this stuff off, that you don't put a lot of pressure on there, because you will pop them off. So and then that's a whole other repair, because now you gotta micro solder them back on, and okay, oh, that's looking good. I am happy with that. Nice and clean. There's the CPU chip, all clean from the old thermal paste. So what I'm going to do now is just lay down some fresh thermal paste here. And then what I'm going to do is just spread it across the chip evenly. So I just need a little bit there. And it says you don't want to apply too much pressure on here where you're scratching it. So just gently pull it down and make sure you're just applying an even coat. Sometimes you might need a little bit more. Can you guys see? Yeah. I'm trying to watch both cameras here. I don't want to block the view from you guys. Okay, there we go. All right, got a nice fresh layer of the thermal paste, and all I need to do now is just reassemble the CPU heatsink. So let me just put this in, and I like to go diagonal when I put down the screw. So I'll start it in the upper left hand corner, then I drop down to the lower right hand corner, just so I know I've got even pressure. Then I go up to the upper right hand corner, and then last would be the lower left hand corner. So okay, it's nice and tight. And then all I need to do now is just reassemble the fan here, plug it in, and then all I need to do now is just reassemble everything back into the laptop's housing, and this guy will be ready to go. So please, just a reminder, schedule, or do it yourself. Clean out. I mean, you'd be surprised how much dust builds up in a laptop and PC. I don't care if your house is as clean as, it's amazing what builds up inside there. So on a regular basis, just open it up, blow it out, because you will get longer life on these units. I do hope you learned something from this video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.